That way, the Greeks would have a reason to resume the war. Athena had long been waiting for exactly this. She rushed down from Olympus at once. Athena did not step in openly, though. Instead, she took the form of a Trojan warrior and approached Pandarus. Pandarus was an archer on the Trojan side, and Athena urged him to shoot Menelaus. She told him that if the arrow struck, he would win glory among the Trojans, and above all earn Paris's gratitude. Pandarus, beguiled by the goddess, lost his judgment. He quietly took aim at Menelaus, drew the bow, and loosed the shaft straight at him. Athena had no intention to let Menelaus die. She only needed an excuse to break the oath. At the critical instant, she deflected the arrow, sending it away from any mortal spot. The arrow pierced Menelaus's armor, but only grazed flesh, drawing blood and nothing more. Peace was torn apart along with his wound, and hatred burst into flame again. Trojans and Greeks plunged once more into chaotic battle. By the end of that day, many warriors lay in the dust, bodies lined up one after another. The true Great War had begun. At that point, Athena began to pour strength and courage into Diomedes, making him seem almost god-possessed, his shield and helmet blazing with light. As he charged into the fiercest part of the field, he killed the archer Pandarus with a single blow, then lifted a great stone and hurled it at the groin of Aeneas, one of Troy's most important champions, leaving him badly wounded. Aeneas' mother was none other than Aphrodite, goddess of love and beauty. Seeing her son wounded, she hurried in to rescue him. Diomedes remembered Athena's command. If he met Aphrodite, he need not hold back. He thrust his spear straight at her. The blade tore open the goddess's wrist, divine blood flowed from the wound, and Aphrodite fled the field screaming in pain. Apollo then stepped in to protect Aeneas, veiling the battlefield in illusion and keeping the struggle alive. He urged Ares, god of war, to join the Trojans. Wherever Ares appeared, Greek soldiers fell like stalks beneath a scythe. Ares had not been idle either. Athena shoved Diomedes' charioteer from the car and leapt up herself, taking the reins and whip in hand, to drive for Diomedes. To keep Ares from recognizing her, she even donned Hades' helm of invisibility. The divine chariot thundered forward, straight toward Ares. Ares had just slain a mighty Greek warrior and was stripping him of his armor. He looked up and saw some reckless mortal daring to challenge him. The war god strode forward, leveled his bronze spear across the chariot rail, and aimed it at Diomedes' throat, trying to kill him with a single thrust. In that split second between life and death, Athena reached out from the unseen and seized the spear point of Ares, swatting it aside. The war god's full-force thrust missed the chariot completely. Diomedes saw the opening and struck back at Ares. Athena guided the blow with divine power, driving the spear through the god's armor and into his lower belly. The point bit into divine flesh, and Ares let out a world-shaking scream. It sounded like the shout of 9,000 or 10,000 men, crying out in battle all at once. The whole battlefield fell silent. Trojans and Greeks alike trembled at that terrible cry. With Athena's favor upon him, Diomedes had reached the absolute height of mortal power. He could wound even a god. Hera and Athena had successfully blocked Ares' aid to the Trojans and helped the Greeks steady the situation for the moment. After that day's fierce fighting, Hector returned to Troy. He had 3 purposes in coming back. First, he wanted his mother to organize a grand offering by the women of the city to Athena, to winning the goddess's favor. But Athena's bitterness over the golden apple ran too deep, and she gave the Trojans no answer. Second, he hoped Helen would urge Paris, whom Aphrodite had saved, to return to the battlefield and stop sinking deeper into love and idleness. The third, and most important reason, was to see his wife Andromache. Andromache had once been a princess in her own right, but her father and her 7 brothers had all been killed by Achilles during these 10 years of war. Now the only family she had left was Hector and their child. When the news reached the city that the Greeks were winning, she was nearly crushed by despair. Leaving her child behind, she climbed the walls, hoping to catch even a single glimpse of hope. Thankfully, Hector had returned. She pleaded with him, begging Hector to stay. She could not bear to lose more of her family. Hector knew, though, that not even the gods could escape what fate decreed. Troy would fall, and when it did, his wife would likely become a slave to the Greeks. As a husband and father, and a prince. All Hector could do was fight with all his strength, to delay fate for as long as he could, and pray to Zeus that his wife and child might be kept safe. Next day, Hector and Paris returned to the battlefield, and Trojan morale quickly revived. In the midst of the fighting, Apollo and Athena decided to suspend the chaos for a time and let a heroic duel settle the question of honor. Moved by divine will, Hector stepped between the armies and challenged the whole Greek army. Faced with Troy's strongest warrior, the Greeks fell silent for a moment. In the end, the lots were cast, and great Ajax, son of Telamon, was chosen. Ajax was one of the mightiest, heavily armed fighters in the Greek army, known as the bulwark of the Greeks. When he strode out with his huge shield, both sides knew that a true clash of champions was at hand. Then, Hector and Ajax met in savage combat. The most famous moment of the duel came when Hector's spear drove through 6 layers of Ajax's 7-fold oxhide shield. Ajax held the upper hand and even knocked Hector to the ground, but he never managed to defeat him completely. In fact, by blood, Hector and great Ajax were distant cousins. To explain that, we have to begin with Hector's grandfather, Laomedon. Troy had only recently been founded when Laomedon inherited the throne and became its second king. The greatest achievement of his reign was the building of Troy's mighty walls, the very walls that now seemed impregnable to any straightforward assault. They were so strong because Poseidon and Apollo themselves had helped raise them. But aside from that, the chief reputation Laomedon left in Greek legend was that of a man who broke his word. He refused to pay the 2 gods for their labor on the walls and drove them out of Troy. And the gods of Greece were famous for their vengeance. Soon Poseidon sent a sea monster to ravage Trojan lands. According to the oracle, Laomedon had to offer up his own daughter to Poseidon if he wished to calm the sea god's wrath. That daughter was Hesione, sister of Priam, the man who now ruled Troy. She was also Hector's aunt. But Poseidon had not expected that Laomedon would find help from a most unlikely source. That rescuer was none other than a son of Zeus, though perhaps that was the least important of his titles. Heracles, nursed by Hera herself, the foremost hero of Greece, the slayer who completed the 12 labors, and after death rose to godhood. Before Heracles, the sea monster was no match at all. Laomedon's daughter was saved. Yet Laomedon did not change. He broke his word again, and refused to hand over the horses he had promised Heracles. But this time, he had offended the wrong man. A year later, Heracles returned to Troy with a band of heroes, ended Laomedon's wicked life with the sword, and carried off Hesione, the very woman he had once rescued, giving her in marriage to a loyal companion. Hesione's son was great Ajax, and it was while Paris was on a journey in search of that very aunt that he met Helen, setting in motion the Trojan War we know now. The duel between Hector and Ajax lasted until nightfall, without a clear victor, but each side had now seen the strength of the other's greatest warrior. Hector had preserved the honor of Troy's foremost champion. Ajax too had shown that the Greeks had more than Achilles alone. When they parted, the two even exchanged gifts, ending the duel with heroic courtesy. Back in Troy, some elders proposed returning Helen and ending the war, but Paris still refused to give up the woman he loved. In the end, the negotiations produced only a temporary truce, so the dead of the war could be buried. That meant the door to peace had finally closed. The Greeks used the truce to build a wall and trench it, in preparation for an even more savage war. At dawn the next day, Zeus summoned all the gods to the peak of Olympus. This time his tone was uncompromising. He warned them directly. Whether god or goddess, no one was to go down again to aid the Greeks or the Trojans. If anyone disobeyed, he would strike them with thunder and even hurl them into Tartarus. Tartarus lay even deeper than Hades, the most dreadful prison of all, the abyss where Zeus had once confined his father Cronus. Yet all these measures of Zeus were meant from beginning to end for one purpose only, to satisfy Thetis's plea and aid Achilles. From the very start, Zeus's goal had never been to grant Troy victory, but to keep the Greeks losing. Only when the Greeks were made to suffer would they begin to miss Achilles. Only when they were driven to the brink would they understand what sort of hero they had lost. Meanwhile, Greeks and Trojans were still locked in battle. At the same time, on Olympus, Hera saw everything. She watched Poseidon helping the Greeks on the field, and was pleased. But she also saw Zeus still seated on the heights, watching the entire battle below. As long as Zeus stayed awake, no god could truly intervene without restraint. So Hera began to plot something bold. She would make Zeus fall asleep. Hera returned to her chamber, adorned herself with care, anointed herself and braided her shining hair, put on the beautiful robe Athena had made, and added her ornaments. She went first to Aphrodite and spun a lie, saying she was traveling to the edge of the earth to reconcile a quarreling couple, and needed the power of desire. Aphrodite saw through none of it, and lent her the enchanted girdle from her breast. Hera hid it away, and the first step of her plan was complete. Then she went to sleep, and took him with her to Mount Ida, asking him to help send Zeus into slumber. Sleep needed only to become a bird and wait nearby for Hera's signal. Wearing Aphrodite's girdle, Hera approached Zeus. In that moment she was breathtaking. With a single glance, a rush of blazing desire shot straight into Zeus's mind, stronger than when they had first come together in secret. To express his passion, Zeus even began recounting all the women he had loved before, only to say that none of them compared to his wife. Then, as Zeus drew a cloud around them, eager to renew his love with Hera, sleep spread his invisible power over him. The king of gods grew heavy-eyed and sank at once into defenseless sleep. The moment Zeus fell asleep, Hera's plan succeeded. Sleep flew straight to the shore and told Poseidon that the king was sleeping, and it was time to act. Once again the balance of war tipped. Poseidon himself led the Greek counterattack, driving the Trojan lines backward and even badly wounding Hector, whom Zeus had been protecting. The Greeks came close to turning the war around entirely. Before long, though, Zeus awoke. He snapped his eyes open and saw that the shape of battle had changed. The Trojans were in retreat, the Greeks were in pursuit, and behind the Greek offensive stood Poseidon himself. Zeus instantly understood he had been deceived. A moment ago he had spoken gently to Hera. Now he erupted in rage. Zeus then set out the course this war would take. Apollo would raise Hector again, and Hector would lead the Trojans in another great assault on the Greeks, driving them all the way back to the ships of Achilles. Even then, Achilles still would not fight in person. According to Zeus's design, the Greek army suffered terrible losses. At last the flames reached the ships. Hector hacked apart the spear in great Ajax's hand. The Trojans seized the moment and set the sterns ablaze. Achilles saw the fire. He finally understood that the situation had reached its most dangerous point. Yet he still refused to fight. The insult from Agamemnon still haunted his mind. Even Patroclus could not persuade him, and so asked to go in his place. Achilles still refused to fight. So in the next chapter, Patroclus will put on Achilles' armor and enter the war in his place. And that choice will change everything. Subscribe if you want to follow the story.